Wonderful to see some familiar faces and then some brand new faces all at the same time. If we've never met before, my name is Willow Sweeney. My background is in high school social studies teaching, but for the last 20 years, I've had the privilege and honor of co-owning a company called Top 20 Training. And we train students and faculty and administration and parents in social and emotional intelligence. So that's kind of what we do for a living now. We go across the country and live train in times that we're not in quarantine. And then we have a curriculum and some books and all of that stuff. I've had also the honor and pleasure of being connected to the SAMS organization for quite a few years now. I want to say 8, maybe going on 9, that these lovely, lovely people have been so hospitable to me and my partners to invite us to share our work with those SAMS teams that are doing such amazing things across the country. So 40 minutes for me is like 4 minutes for other people. So I'm going to hop right into what I brought for today, because I want as much time as possible to talk about what I've brought. Here's how I think I'm going to start. I want to talk about where we were before any of this happened last March. And then I want to talk about what we've been through. And then I want to talk about where we're going. And I think that if we break it up into those 3 places, we can talk about what's really critical. Critical means immensely important to talk about the past, the kind of the end of the present, and then where we're going next into the future. So where we were before. So for us, everything sort of hit the proverbial fan March 13th of last year. My partners and I live in the state of Minnesota. That was the exact date in 2020 that our kids were sent home from school. We had canceled all of our trips to go across the country and work. For me, I just call that the date. Your state may have been different here or there, but basically March of last year. Before that happened, each one of you were doing an amazing job leading a group of staff and students and parents through the educational process. Let's for a second go back and remind ourselves of the truth of who we are as educational leaders, which was you were really rocking it before this even started. Were there problems? Of course, because there is not a school district in the country that does not have problems. But there was good and there was bad from before any of this happened. And the important part of that is to remind ourselves that we were doing really good things before, and those things will come back if they haven't already. Even though we've been through crisis and chaos, there's a bedrock history that you each have for what you've already done in the building. And I want to just remind ourselves of that, because what we need to do is mine out all those really positive things that we used to do and make some really solid big changes in some of the things that we maybe weren't doing as effectively that we'd like to make some changes on. That's really the truth of who we were before. We want to get back to the goodness, and we probably want to take this opportunity to make some good change as we go forward. Now let's talk about what we've all just been through. 13 months of quarantine, social unrest, injustice, chaos in our lives personally and across the board. And for me, that looked a lot like trauma in a way. Not in a way, it was trauma, but trauma different because we were all going through it together. I want to share my screen with you. Last April, I do pretty good on Facebook. I'm a 44-year-old gal. I do pretty good on Facebook. When it comes to like Twitter and I get kind of lost in the mix. But I was able to see a tweet that came out last April, and it blew me away. So everybody, imagination station for a second. Take yourself back to where you were the first couple of weeks when this all hit us. Remember March 13th of last year when we thought, this could be a couple of weeks. We better buckle up. This could be something. I mean, what if we're in our homes for 20 days? Remember that we used to feel like that. And then I'm going to share my screen with you all. And then we hit this place in about a month in where I think we had some realizations that things were going to be a little bit different than what we thought they were going to be. So here's the tweet. You are watching people go through withdrawal from the emotional addiction to certainty. Now, this was written by somebody named Ashley C. Ford, who is a writer, as far as I can figure out of Brooklyn. She said, what we are watching people go through is a withdrawal from the emotional addiction to certainty. And for me, it was like, boom, that's what's happening. Because we were all so used to knowing or thinking we knew where things were going. This is my date book. People make fun of me, including my husband, because I will not put any calendar dates on an iPhone. I must have it physically written down in this book. Last March, this was filled with plans. I had a sense, now not everything, some things were going to get rained out or somebody was going to cancel, but I had a sense of where my life was going. And boom, about a month into this quarantine, it was like, no, you're not going to do any of those things. And so what happened to me, and I think what happened to a lot of people, is an experience of loss and grief and trauma. And when that happens, I describe it as sort of like my internal snow globe gets shook. Do you know what a snow globe is, right? If you go to New York City and you go to a trinket shop and you buy a snow globe, I know Tamara's looking at me like, no, in Florida, we have no snow. We had snow here in Minnesota yesterday. If you think about shaking that up, that's commonly what I refer to as going through internal trauma. Something in your life has caused a major upset and you feel shook. And when that happens, it feels as if the foundation under your feet is kind of loosey-goosey, and it's very, very hard to kind of control your inside and your outside. Now, I've had that happen to me in my life numerous times when things in my personal world have gone south. But when that happened to me, when I was going through some rough times, most times the people around me were not going through that same thing. So I had best friends and business partners and my husband and other people who at the time I kind of lost it were solid. And there was this support system. What I saw happen at the beginning of last year and somewhat throughout the last school year is that we all dropped at the same time, and there wasn't that communal support system in the way it usually is when we have a trauma going on in our personal lives. So that becomes a collective grief and a collective trauma. And when that happens, I think what we saw was this group, and that was difficult for everybody. I think that was incredibly difficult for leaders. If your job is to continue to support, but everybody in your life has had their snow globe shook, that's really, really difficult. But while we did it, you went through it. Every single day you continued to lead. Every single day you kept the best interest of your staff and the students and the parents forefront. You were able to make it through step by step by step. So what I want us to do is, as a group, see ourselves coming out of the grief and the trauma of everything that happened. And by the way, that was at a different spectrum for everybody, right? Everybody had a different fear level. Everybody had a different anxiety level. Everybody had a different loss level. Some people lost a bunch of people in the last 13 months. Some people did not know anybody that died. So we were all kind of in this different place. But I haven't met a group yet that hasn't said everything is different now. Everything feels different going forward. So no matter where you were on that spectrum, it seems as if this is a grand time for change. So I want to celebrate the survival. I want to celebrate that we made it through. I want us to identify that we were strong enough, not to do it perfect. None of us did, but we made 27,000 meals for the people who live in our house. And we did Zoom meetings from morning till night. And we helped out our neighbors and our coworkers when we could. And that's worth celebrating, because I believe there is goodness in the trying, meaning not the result, not always the success or the failure. It's just about the trying. And through those 13 months, I'm sure there were people out there that were not trying. And that might be valid that they couldn't. But I saw a lot. I saw almost every teacher I know trying the best they could. I saw every administrator I know trying the best they could. I think students tried. as much as they could. And I think parents tried in virtual learning as much as they could. And there's goodness just in that. What if they didn't get enough math though? There's goodness just that they tried. What if the schedule is completely off and we're totally in, there's goodness just in the trying. So what I want to celebrate is that we all tried and we all did the best that we could, even when things got pretty rough. So where are we going from here? Well, now it's called, we were good, and then we got a little rocky and a little chaos hit all of us, and now we need to take off. For most of you, you have 6 or 7 in school year weeks left. That does not mean that the rest of you stop working in 6 or 7 weeks, especially leaders in buildings will continue to go. But there will be that natural break of the school year that we in education deserve. First of all, anyone who ever says you get 3 months off in the summer, even a staff member, is never worked in the world of education. We don't get that much time off. And if you're a leader, you certainly don't get that much time off. But there is a reason that we have the school way the way that we do. And this is what I believe. You have 180 teaching days in most states. And that means that the adults in the building are doing something different every single day for 180 days. If you've never worked outside of the world of education, that is bizarre. I have a husband who's worked for the same company. He's very successful. He's been there 25 years. He's not listening, I don't think. He does the same thing every day. Every day he wakes up, he does the same thing for 8 hours for the company. He does very, very well. He's celebrated for his work. But he doesn't have to come up with 180 different shows a year. That is an incredible request of adults in the workplace. So what do? We take a natural break, we take a breath, and we start over. The breath is important. Now, if my husband was listening and he would yell from the other room, I'd like to take a breath too. And I wish that more corporations realize that. But we need that natural start over. And we're going to get it in about 6 or 7 weeks. So where are we going? I think there's 5 things I would keep my eyes on if I was a leader in a school. And since I'm not, you can take these and tweak these whatever way they work for you. But when Sam's and Mark asked me, what do you think the 5 things are? This is kind of where I went. Number 1, resume what was good. It is worth meeting with your Sam's partner, right? Maybe not now, maybe not this second, because some of you got rats and backpacks that I heard at the beginning, and some of you have to get through the next 6 or 7 weeks. But at some point this summer, it would be a grand idea to sit down and take stock and say to ourselves, what was it that we did before that we absolutely have to get back to? And if we've been away from that for 13 months, there's no guilt or shame or blame there. We just have to get back to what we did, which was good, and take an inventory of what that was. And I would encourage, if you haven't yet, to start to think, these were the things that were really working for us, and sort of document them in a way that solidifies that as the way your school operates. I'm not big on mission statements or mottos that we don't live by. I love lists of values as long as that's how we lead the school, but I'm always wanting to tell the truth. And the truth for me is, hey, this is what we want and this is what we're going to do. And that way, when 7 people leave and 7 new people come in, there is sort of a formalized culture and climate goal of the school in which I lead. So I would go back, and when you have a chance, and resume. We got to get back to what was good. With that being said, we also have to embrace change, because there were some things that were not good in each of our school buildings. And this, we have Paul and I have a business partner, a former business partner, who always used to use this phrase. We are at a holy jumping off point. And I don't mean holy as in religious, I mean as in sacred. This is our springboard moment to get rid of some of the things that we should never probably have been doing in the first place, and eliminate those and make change. Here's why that's so difficult. We are supposed to be innovators, educators, right? We are all about the future and doing the new thing. Do you know how long it took people to go from red grade books to bubbling in on the sheets? I can't even believe that took place in the educational world. We are not good at change. We maybe some people are very good at change, but as an industry, we tend to fight it off. And I think I know why I used to fight off change. It's really simple. It presses my not good enough button. Let me explain. If I've been doing something all the way along and it's been working, and then you ask me to do it a different way, my internal reaction sometimes is, oh, was I not doing it well enough before? That didn't work well enough? The red book on paper wasn't good enough. Now we have to bubble them in. That feeling needs to be addressed, because if you, as a very effective leader, say, we're going to use this moment to go boom, we're going to make some big time change. If you're willing to do that now, we have to address the feelings of change for the people who work for us, because there might be some, well, what was wrong with the way we did it before? Now, they may not say that to you verbally, but you may feel pushback when you announce change, because that's what's really going on inside the hearts and minds of people. So let's just go there. Let's be totally transparent and open and say, we were so good and we want to get better. And we see some initiatives that might do that. So we're going to stop doing some things that had some unintended consequences, and we're going to try it a new way. That doesn't mean you weren't good enough before. It just means as a team, we're going to move on and do it a different way. This is an opportunity. That sounds so cheesy. That sounds like a bumper sticker. It doesn't matter. It is. Don't let any crisis or chaos in your life go to waste, because crisis is really, it comes from a Latin word that means crossroads, choice point. This is where you get to decide to do things differently. Nobody likes a crisis. It comes with a lot of human pain and suffering. It is, however, an opportunity to do things different than we have done them before. So embrace change and encourage the people around you to understand that it's not because we didn't do it right to begin with. It's because we're going in a different direction now. 3, where are we going? Clear expectations to calm fears. You got some scared people. Now, this 13 months later, it feels like a lot. These are all sort of cliche now, but we live in a world of cliche now, don't we? There is light at the end of the tunnel. We are coming through. Science has served us and technology is working, and we are going to get back to living normal. And we are, and we will. And there's still deep-rooted anxiety and fear of the unknown, because we were addicted to certainty. We were addicted to before to understanding. We knew where the world was going, and now we still don't, even though we might be able to go to a restaurant in the next couple of months. There's still a bedrock underneath here. And the way that we can calm that for the people that we lead is to be crystal clear with the expectations of where we are going next. That is the number one way to calm fears. Staff will always have fear about what's coming next in the unknown. Be as clear and transparent as you can with them. 2 other groups to keep a very close eye on: students and parents. Students will come back, and most likely you will say, they are so resilient. This is unbelievable and amazing that they just went home with their computers and now they're back and they're acting. There still will be some, I don't know what I'm doing. This kind of freaks me out. If they don't verbally share that, we want to encourage our staff members, when every time they're working with them, to say, this is exactly what we're doing and this is why, so that we can calm those internal fears. You probably have some internal fears of your own. If I was a SAM's principal or leader and I had my SAM partner, I think both of those roles would be very served to reevaluate the expectations you have of each other at this point, and to let each other know this is how this is going to work going forward, so that both of you are on the same page. I'm not sure exactly how SAM's worked over the last 13 months. My guess is that it's such a strong connection and relationship, it continued the way it was. But while chaos was going around us, it might be a great time to recommit to that relationship and use our tools the way that we've been told in SAMs, because that will help our own internal fears be calmed as well. That's number 3. Where are we going? Clear expectations to calm fears. 4, and this for me will always be the number 1 and the biggest. Relationships first, relationships first, relationships first. Mark, you're going to need to hire somebody else to come on and talk about the math that was lost, because in my heart of hearts, I understand the big concern that comes with losing time in curriculum, but I'll be the most honest and transparent and tell you, I think it's going to be fine. I think they're going to catch up. I think for most students, 4th grade is going to turn into what the end of 3rd grade was, and we're going to be okay. And I don't mean to be flippant about that, because I know many of you have the job to make sure that the math gets done, but you'll need a different speaker to figure that out. Because for me, it's all about the human beings that are in my building, and that's the students. And because the students have parents, their parents might not be in the building, but the students, the parents, and the staff, and the admin, relationship first, relationship first. One thing that happened over the 13 months where the lost year, my parents, my name is Willow. So my parents refer to the lost years in the 70s, but that's for a different reason. This is going to be the lost year for a lot of people. Like, what happened? I don't know. It was the slowest year of our lives and the fastest year of our lives all at the same time. But one of the things that happened was we missed a year of working on the relationships amongst our staff members. We lost it. We lost a year of it. We lost a year of potlucks, and we lost a year of kickball games, and we lost a year of Friday afternoon choir practice, or whatever your staff calls it when they go get a Pepsi Cola and some appetizers after school. We lost a year of that, and it is time that we have to play catch up. I always talk about teachers as their classroom being a social aquarium, and they are sort of the largest guppy in the aquarium, so they can socially direct how interactions go in their own classroom. Let's get bigger for a second. The SAMs leaders and the SAMs, both the SAMs team, your job is to, in some ways, determine the climate and the culture of your building. I say some ways because I'm a big proponent that culture and climate should be a grassroots effort of all the people who are working the building. I think that gives them ownership and power over the energy of the building. But you are leading, and we have to play some catch up on getting them to kind of reintroduce themselves to each other and go from there. Lots of us are going to still have some impediments to that. We're going to have to mask wear. We're going to have to socially distance. We're going to have to still stay safe, even though we've got technology and science serving us. But with that said, how can we formally do as much as we can to make sure that they are making connections with each other as staff members, and then reaching out to our community to make sure that the parents and the kids feel welcome? We can do that by communicating you matter. That's a top 20 pillar of culture that we use a lot. You matter. And when we say you matter, what I mean by that is, number 1, hey, other human, I see you. You aren't invisible to me. You're not one of the masses. You authentically being yourself is important to me, and I want to acknowledge that. And then 2, I like to show people that they are valued, that they matter here, meaning I see your contribution to this community, and that's really, really important. We can never have 500 Willows on a staff. Can you even imagine what that would be? We certainly couldn't have 500 Willows, but we need Carol, and we need Mark, and we need Tamara, and we need Stacy. We need all these personalities on our staff and our student base, because that's what makes us the most rich. So we want to make sure that people feel seen and feel valued as they are coming back into our in-person buildings next year. And that might feel as if you're going to have to overdo it to make up for the last year that we've had. Relationships, relationships, relationships first. 5, where are we going? If this year has not taught us anything else, it should be that we only exist as humans fully when we lead with empathy. Empathy, not sympathy, not imagining what it would be through, what it would be to go through things. We've all been through this same thing. So we all understand that we are coming back a little bit broken. And I don't mean broken in a pejorative way. I think all humans are broken a lot of times. We all go through some really big stuff that takes us out at the knees. This time we went through some very similar things together. And we want to make sure that we are acknowledging that we may not all be the same people we were 13 months ago. And that's okay. And we can get better and we can heal as a group, but we need to make sure that our choices that we make going forward, we can't go back to status quo. That's what it is. We can't. We've been gifted a time of crisis to realize that it's about our humanity going forward. Now, I'd like to do a 7-hour speech about that in our communities, not just in our schools, but you know that schools are the building blocks of community. So here we go. We've been reminded about the truth of who we are, that what schools are all about is becoming. Students becoming who they're going to be, staff continuing to grow, our own personal growth in leadership. We want to give empathy to the people around us. And that's how we will help others succeed. That's another big bedrock thing for Top 20 training. How can I help you succeed? Helping others succeed is really just the definition of team, right? Like we are on a team together. We have each other's backs. We are going forward as much as we can. I've got you. We can do that going back in with empathy. With that, so I'm going to show you, here's the 5. Resume the good, embrace the change, have clear expectations, have relationship be first and foremost on everyone's mind, and lead with empathy. If we can do those things, I think we have a chance of coming back bigger and brighter with our future. With that being said, friends, I gotta say that's how you lead others. But you gotta take care of yourself. You all have been through the ringer. And so there needs to be a moment where we say, I'm gonna do my best, and there's going to be goodness in my trying, but I won't always succeed. And sometimes I'm going to fail. And that's okay. And I know that that sounds like a bumper sticker cheesemo thing too. But when I've worked with so many of your type, you're of a type, right? You leader types. I've worked with so many of you over the years, and you put so much internal pressure on yourself. When things go wrong, it really does feel like you failed. I just want to encourage you to give yourself a whole lot of time and grace to be able to lead. And sometimes that it means that we have to admit out loud to the people that we lead, hey, that piece did not work the way that I thought it was going to work. I'm gonna refocus and change this and do it differently. But you are a human, and your value is not based on whether you succeed or whether you fail. So I am watching lots of you, you're note takers. I'm not a note taker. I'm like a just talk, like what I was like, I'm just going to talk, but I see a lot of you taking notes right now. So here's what I'd like for you to do at the bottom of your notes. I'd like you to write, I am blank, and fill in your own name. So I'd like Brandy to write, I am Brandy, Sharon to write, I am Sharon. Write those 3 words down. Comma, and my value is not based on my failures. My value is not based on my failures. I'd like that to be the next sentence. So I'm going to do it for myself. I am Willow, and my value is not based on my failures. Now throw in another comma, although I don't think that's grammatically correct. Write these words, or my successes. Wrap yourself around that for a second, friends, because you all have been rising to the top like a rocket ship since you started this career. Lots of you started in the classroom. Then you took some more classes. Then you got your master's. Now you're a licensed administrator. Lots of you started at one school and moved to another. You have been do. My career has gone do. And the successes are wonderful, and we should shoot for them. But they have nothing to do with my self-worth. I am Willow, and I am good enough just because I am, and I try. And I will be successful, and at times I will fail. and it is what it is. Control freaks don't like that sentence. It is what it is. And I'm not a control freak. I just super like to be in control. But it is what it is. You will give the best of yourself. You will do it for the students. You will do it for the staff, but cut yourself some slack because nobody could have seen this coming. And hopefully we don't knock on something. We don't have to go through something like we've been through the last 13 months for quite a while, but we might. That's the other thing. We might. So let's encourage ourselves to say, we don't know what's next. So in this present time, we will just keep trying and we will understand that there is goodness in the trying. Last thing, some of the things that didn't work before were not in your control. Usually I say, if there's something you really don't like about your job, it's probably something that's not in your control, because if it was in your control, you would have already changed it. Most likely, if you're an effective leader, if there's some rules you didn't like, you would just change them up. Now, keep an eye open because sometimes we have blind spots. There are some things that you are in charge of that you'd now like to change from the past to make it better. Do those things. But we are also in a place where the folks who work above us, whomever those folks are also in scramble mode. I'm working with district after district after district that is changing the rules on people. It seems every 24 hours. We're going to start now. No, we're going to go to hybrid now. No, we're going to go back into. They are scrambling as well. And what I'm seeing a lot of, because I'm working all the time, I'm only working in this box. This is my new, I don't have to get on a plane yet, but I'm working a ton. And what I'm hearing from staff and admin across the country all the time is they keep changing the rules. They keep making it so that we don't know what's coming next. The district is doing this. The state is doing this. The federal government is doing that. What can happen is that we can start to work out of a place of blame. And blame is really not a functional place for humans to operate, because what it does is it ends up giving all of our power and control to somebody else. And so we're waking up in the morning thinking to ourselves, well, as long as the district and the state and the federal government makes the choices for us that are best, then we'll be okay. I'm not sure if you've spent 10 years in education or 20 years or 30 years in education, but friends, that's going to be a long wait. It turns out we do not get the decisions that we want all the time out of those three places. And so we have got to continue on, not just blaming, gosh, if they would just, we just can't go there because it is what it is. It's sort of an outside of our control thing. And I wish it was different, but we're not in control of that. So we want to take back our power in a way and say, I will determine what I can determine, when I can determine it on a day-to-day basis. And everything else, I will fight with all the power I have to make good change and demand good change from the leaders, but I cannot live in the blame situation of saying they've got to make the change before this can get any better, because they haven't been quick about it yet. And although I don't know what's coming next, I would lean towards maybe it won't come as fast as you would want it. So we're operating in this big system, but we can really take care of us and ours. So what I'd like to encourage you to do is, as much as possible, give yourself grace, give yourself breaks, and make sure that you are supporting the people around you in the way that you would like to be supported. And we'll go from there and we'll see what's next. But let's congratulate ourselves for a second for making it through, I would say, one of the hardest years of current history education in this country. And let's celebrate that we did it, and that our staff did it, and that the students did it, and that the parents did it. And let's congratulate that there was goodness in the trying. You guys, it was so good to see you. I care for all of you so very much. And the idea, Mark, that you would invite me to come on and just riff on the things I'm thinking about these days, I have the best job in the world. So I am absolutely appreciative of all of you and everything that you have done.
Willow, we really appreciate you. This has been a lot of fun, and it make people think, which is really good. I have a question for you that's going to make you think, though.
Okay.
What do you want to embrace from the pandemic? From your experience during the pandemic, what do you want to keep and not throw away?
Right. Well, I would say that if we all got really honest, this idea of the Zoom thing, there's just been so much of it because it's the only way that we've been able to connect. However, we've also hopefully learned that some meetings can turn into emails. And some, you know what I mean? And sometimes a 4-minute face-to-face on Zoom is better than sitting on a phone call with 6 people and not being able to read their facial expression. I'm constantly now, as I'm doing business, saying to my clients, do you want to go phone call? Sure. Or do you want to just go on Zoom? Because I love being able to look into people's eyes. Here's a trick, by the way. I don't know if any of you will notice, but I use the gallery with everybody up on my screen because, believe it or not, I am attempting to make eye contact with each one of you as I'm speaking. I don't know if you can feel it or not, but I've looked into Sharon's eyes 30 times since I've started this thing. So there's this technology is getting in the way of a lot of social interaction, and we need to get back to that as soon as possible because humans need touch and they need interface, and all of that is so wildly important, but we need to do it safely. So this has been a great tool, but I think we need to tweak the tools that we've had to be able to serve us better in the future. I don't know about everybody else too. Everybody's in a different state of life, but I got 2 years with my kids or 2 years, 13 months. It feels like 2 years.
Felt like 2 years.
I got this time with my kids that I would never have gotten before. My oldest is 15. He's going to leave in 3 years. There are certainly some times that I would have shipped him off somewhere else over the last 13 months. And I would have preferred somebody else did the 27,000 cooking meals. But I'm really grateful for a lot of what I got. Slowing down. It's really important. This is all cliche, but I'm sure you guys are doing this, taking stock in your own life too. It's not all been bad. It really hasn't all been bad.
I really appreciate the examples you used. I would tell you that I've had a couple of principals, more than a couple actually, tell me one thing they're not going to give away is the one-on-one conversations they've been able to have that are far more personal via Zoom than they ever had with a teacher when everyone was in the building. So I've heard that, and that kind of surprised me, but I've had many people tell me they were able to develop a different kind of relationship when it was just one person they were talking to instead of a committee of folks. The other thing I've heard from several principals, not a whole lot, but several, is that they're no longer going to do the big staff meetings anymore. Or if they do, it's going to be a very short piece, and then they're going to have recorded pieces that they can let people watch when they'd like. So they don't necessarily make everybody be in the same room at the same time. Willow, you are just terrific, and I want to tell you how much we appreciate you. Everyone, if you'd like to wave at Willow, I know she does the gallery thing, you can thumbs up, say, hey, that was great. You want to put something in the chat box, please do. I do want to thank you so much for participating, Willow. We do provide a recording to everyone after this session is over, and Jim will send it out with some other resources, including information about Top 20 training. I would tell you if I was a new principal or even a principal in my last year or a superintendent in my last year, I would engage with Top 20 training because it gets people to go to the most important piece of teaching or working in a school, and it is relationships. How you develop that relationship and create a situation and a setting that's going to work for a child, a staff member, a family. And I just really love the work you guys do. So Paul and Willow and everyone at Top 20 Training, thank you. We're going to switch now to breakout rooms. And those of you who'd like to stay with us, please do. You don't have to participate in the breakout room, but if you'd like to, it's easy to do. Just go to the breakout room, and I will go ahead and set those up right now. And you can join the breakout room, and it's starting right now. Thanks again, everyone. Take care.
Friend, I can go into a breakout room in a second. I just thought I'd connect with you before I went. I think you're still on mute.
There we go. There we go.
Thank you.
You have such energy when you present. I
Oh,
certainly appreciate it. You make it very authentic, and it doesn't feel recorded or rehearsed. It's good. It's a real skill you have, Will.
oh, thank you, friend. I hope that's what you wanted.
Are you kidding? It's exactly what we
Okay.
wanted. You probably didn't get to see the comments that people were writing in.
Were they
Uh,
okay?
oh, just great. People talking about how this was just the right time to be able to have this kind of conversation
Good,
or
good,
presentation. That was great. It's great.
good.
What
All
are you
right.
looking
Well,
for? Before you go to breakout rooms, what are you looking forward to doing right away? Is there something you're saying, hey, I'm really looking forward to doing this?
I want to have brunch at a
Uh,
restaurant. Brunch. I don't know why that keeps sticking with me, but like a really good brunch to me sounds like the most exciting. And then I travel with a group of 7 women every year. And so
yeah,
we were waylaid on that. So we're just starting our planning for winter of this year. That'll
terrific.
be a good mental health thing to kind of look forward to. Um, one last thing before we go. You're still recording. Do you want to stop recording or it doesn't matter to me? What I'm going to say could be recorded.
I thought I had stopped. Oh, I haven't. Thank you. I do want to stop. I'll have to have Jim edit this for me.
No, that's fine.